Before every therapy session, I would review my client's notes. And you're like, of course you did, Tami. But it wasn't to just remember the facts or history or the direction we were going for treatment. It was to remember the emotional state they were in. Because I knew something deeply important, that how I showed up would shape how the session unfolded. For instance, if a client was anxious, I would lower my voice, I would slow my voice, I dimmed the lights, I added calming scents. If my client was depressed, I'd brighten the room, I brought in warmth, color, energy, I'd bring in extra pillows. I didn't do this to manipulate the environment. I did it because the environment regulates the person. And leadership works the same way. As a leader, you set the emotional tone long before you set the direction, the goals, or the expectations. Hi, my name is Tami Imlay, and you're listening to the Leader's Purpose podcast. If you're new here, I'm so excited you're here. If you've been listening to her for a long time, I appreciate that. I am an executive leadership strategist and advisor, and I guide senior leaders and executive teams through leadership clarity so they can make confident decisions, align their teams, and perform at a high level even under pressure. And we're back with part 4 of the Resilient Leader series. And if you haven't listened to parts 1 through 3, I highly recommend it. But here's a recap, because I know for the last 2 weeks, we took a little bit of a hiatus so I could talk about some of the lessons that I've learned for 2025. So part 1 was the pop quiz no one studied for. We named the moment leadership stops being theoretical and starts being exposed. In a crisis, people don't follow the plan. They follow the leader's nervous system. If you're calm, they're calm, which we'll get more into today. But part 2 was resilience is built on a Tuesday. We talked about why resilience isn't forged in trauma or in trials or in challenges, but it's forged in the ordinary, unglamorous, boring days before pressure hits. It's built on a Tuesday. The habits you practice when nothing is wrong determine how your team shows up when everything is. And then part 3, I think has been my favorite so far. It's compassion without compromise. So we're in the society right now where it's the kind thing to be kind. And I wanted to tackle the tension between care and standards, because true compassion doesn't lower the bar. It holds people to the standards with clarity, dignity, and integrity. It's not avoiding the hard conversations because you want to make sure people feel okay. You have the conversations, you work with your people, you hold them to the expectations you have, but you do it with integrity. You do it with the kindness of the truth. So today we're going to take the next step, because once you've built the habits and once you've clarified the standards, your presence becomes the deciding factor. Way more than you even realize. But before we go further, let me pause here for a moment. If this conversation is hitting home and you're thinking, I know my team actually needs to live this, not just hear it. I'm offering in January, Q1 of next year, I'm offering sample sessions from my 3 leadership workshops. This is the first time I've done this, where these workshops are designed to build resilient teams from the inside out. One helps leaders uncover core motivations, so you can finally understand what's driving the decisions your people are making, the conflict, the performance. And instead of reacting to behavior and drama, you're leading through it. Another helps leverage their unique wiring to improve communication, collaboration, and culture, turning differences into strengths instead of friction. And the third is about making it stick, building simple, sustainable systems that work even when things get busy and you're not in the room. So if you want to experience one of these sample sessions for your team, head to TamiMarieCoaching.com/call, or even faster, message me on LinkedIn, and we can figure out which session is the best fit for your team in this moment, and we can get you on the calendar. But now I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to ask you to do something. So think of the last challenge you faced. Was it last week? Last month? Maybe it was 15 minutes ago. What do you remember most about it? What happened? What was the outcome? How did you navigate it? And what did you learn about yourself in the middle of it? And here's why I ask. People try to control the storm. You don't control the storm. There we go. You don't control the storm, but you absolutely influence the climate. Pressure will come. Conflict happens, sometimes daily, and decisions are absolutely hard. But your presence determines whether the room feels volatile or stable, reactive or thoughtful, tense or grounded. And just like weather systems, teams don't respond to what you say as much as what they sense. And if you walk into pressure like a thunderstorm, your team braces. But if you enter it with steadiness, they breathe. And you're not just leading the work, you're setting the weather everyone else is going to operate in. And so today I've got 6. This one's gonna be a little bit longer. I actually probably should have split it into 2, but since I just did a 2-parter, I was like, I'll just get it done in 1. But I've got 6 ideas for you, 6 things to help you understand why emotional regulation is actually one of the most important leadership skills that you'll have. Idea number 1 is leadership is regulation before direction. Before your words can lead, your nervous system already has. Your nervous system shows up before you say a word. And your leadership, the decisions you make in leadership are made milliseconds before logic ever enters. A dysregulated leader doesn't lack intelligence. They lack the access to the intelligence. When you're dysregulated, it's the logic that goes first. It's the panic, it's your decisions, and you start to work under chaos instead of under clarity. And stress narrows perspective. And urgency feels necessary. Like you just got to keep moving. And the nuance of these circumstances, of the trials, of these tribulations, the nuance of them disappears, which so does our ability to navigate through them instead of just managing them. So when you are in survival mode, your brain looks for speed, not wisdom. Our brains want to get out of the situation fast, and it will go into automatically into the reaction mode and pull from old patterns, and unfortunately not the healthy ones. So this is why leaders typically will, in a time of pressure, they overcorrect, they micromanage, or they shut down. And also why you can't afford to. But calm restores access to judgment, creativity, and discernment. And when the nervous system senses the storm, everything feels urgent, right? But even when it isn't. And so when you give yourself a moment and you regulate first, then you're able to regulate everything else. You can see what's urgent, what's not, and you're able to lead instead of react. You're able to respond instead of react, and you can remove the chaos. So idea number 2 is you are always setting the emotional ceiling. Your team's emotional intelligence could only go as high as yours is. Your team will not sustainably operate above your level of regulation. And I say this because it doesn't matter how emotionally stable your team is, you set the tone. You see this within a lot of situations where you're only strong as your weakest link. Don't be the weakest link. Make sure that you have a level of regulation before stepping into leadership, before stepping into a crisis. And because your team is going to mirror the tone before they mirror the strategy. They're going to feel your energy and your reactions before they hear what you want to do about it. You don't have to say you're stressed. Your pace has already told them. If you're pacing in your office, you're short in conversations, you're biting your nails, you're sweating profusely. These visual cues are speaking really loud, and you don't have to say a word. But your calm becomes borrowed oxygen. Your calm it regulates the room and allows them to breathe too. Your anxiety becomes shared tension. And so it's so important that we know in those crisis moments, sometimes it is urgent. Sometimes we have a visceral reaction, but then we need to take a moment and we need to look at what is truly going on. What needs to be shared? How do we need to handle this? And sometimes it's, hey, we need to take a beat. We need to take a breath. And we need to remove the anxiety so that way it's not shared tension. But we need to bring in the calm and say, okay, what do we know? And one of the things that's so interesting is humans are wild. Humans are wired for co-regulation. We feed off the energy of others. You can tell this with you see it easily with kids. When you have a calm kid and an anxious kid, you put them together. Typically, the anxious kid leeches over to the calm kid, and even that calm kid starts to do things that they don't typically do. And the same as when you're around anxious people, it makes you anxious. When you're around strong, calm people, and you can take a breath, it lowers the anxiety. And so your presence gives others permission to think clearly or brace for defensiveness. Which do you want it to be? Your presence gives the others permission. And it's either to think clearly or brace for defensively. There we go. Defensively. Is defensiveness, is that a word? But this is why be calm never works. It must be modeled, not requested. If you want a calm environment, you need to bring that with you. And this is where most people ask me, what do I do with this? And this is exactly where my work starts with my clients. Is when I'm working with a leader or an executive team, we don't start with strategy. We start by reading the room. We start by reading the climate. We start by understanding the current tone that is influencing more than you realized. And we look at what the leader is bringing into the room under pressure. One of the things when I am coaching individuals or teams, it's you can't change other people, but you can change yourself. So you've got to look at yourself first and look at your team as a collective and what is the leader bringing into the room under pressure? We notice patterns in pace, tone, urgency, availability, and we identify where the anxiety or control or avoidance is quietly driving decisions, whether you realize it or not. And when we regulate the leader first, the team will naturally follow. And again, if the leader is stormy, the team starts to build the umbrella instead of the momentum. Do you want them focusing on putting things into place just in case and building for the impact? Or do you want to ride the storm and use it as an opportunity to grow? Do you want to use it as momentum instead of sandbags? Idea number 3, unregulated leadership creates invisible chaos. When leaders don't manage the climate, the loudest emotion in the room takes over. And sometimes it isn't even the leader's emotions. It might be the most anxious person in the room because anxiety spreads faster than information. Small problems feel catastrophic and conflict either explodes or disappears underground. And neither of those are really helpful. And a conflict, it's such an interesting thing, and I won't get into it, but conflict is really healthy in an environment, in a workplace, in a team. You want conflict. You don't want dysfunction, but you do want conflict. And so having it either explode or disappear underground, it's not going to help your team grow. And if you've experienced your people, or maybe yourself, being really busy but not being productive, activity doesn't necessarily mean productive. And we know that it's the invisible chaos that throws the fire on this effect. It's the invisible chaos, that anxiety that says we have to keep working, but we're actually not getting anything done. And so again, with the nervous system here, is dysregulation makes people either hypervigilant or withdrawn. People and this is where high performers either burn out quietly or they quite quit. They can't withstand. They want to perform. But if you're just doing busy work over and managing chaos, it's exhausting. And the biggest thing here is creativity shuts down because your psychological safety disappeared. And in times of crisis, in times of trials, when challenges appear, it's creativity that we need. So no forecast creates fear. So I was thinking about this because I was reading about fear, and as I'm trying to think of a metaphor to talk about and decided the weather would be a good one. It's like, it's not the forecast that creates the fear, and people prepare for the worst when they don't know what to expect. And so with the forecast, when we don't know what category it's going to be or where the tornado is going to go, because I live in Tornado Alley, that's when we start to fear. As a leader, it's your responsibility to help them know what to expect. And that means trust, resources, that you have their back, that you're going to support them, that you're with them, that you're a collective team. When something happens, let them know you're on their side. Also, let them know that no matter what happens, you've got their back. This is really important because it will bring in that safety. It will bring in the calm, knowing that you are steady. And so the fourth idea here is calm is an active leadership skill. Calm is not disengagement. It's intentional regulation. There is time to bring in some energy. There is time to bring in this excitement. But during the times of trials and circumstances and challenges, we really need to intentionally regulate this so we can think things through. And when I was thinking about this word calm, I actually like to use the word resolved even more here, because because I know that when something is resolved, you have a steady inner decision that holds under pressure. Or resolve is the ability to remain grounded in your decisions, in your direction, and your values, even when circumstances are uncertain, emotional, or uncomfortable. Resolve is what allows you, because you don't gain the resolve in the moment. You decide on the resolve on a Tuesday. That's the built-in resiliency, is that resolve of what to do. You have that ability to remain grounded in your decision, direction, and values, even when things are uncertain, when they're emotional, and when they're uncomfortable. And one of the things I was thinking is like, okay, calm without resolve can look passive, which we don't want. We don't want, even as leaders, we don't want our bosses to think that we're not taking things seriously. So we don't want to look passive. And then there's resolve without calm. You can look reactive. If you're like, okay, we need to know what to do, and we just go for it. But sometimes that can fall into the anxiety because we know what we got to do. But do you? Have you looked through and have you decided on the nuances of all the challenges? But when you have calm with resolve, that is where it builds team's trust. That is when the crisis becomes an opportunity. That's when your team rises above it and can shine through it. And you actually come out the other side stronger, better, and more productive. Calm leaders are often misunderstood as passive. And that's why it's having those values, having the decision, the direction, communicating your thoughts is really important, because just being like chill, that's not what I mean here. I don't want you to be passive, but I do want you to be regulated. And in reality, you're doing more internal work than everyone else in the room. So though you are on the outside, you may appear relaxed. Inside, you are making the decisions. You're remembering the values. You're discovering a direction. Like, you've got a lot going on. You're just not projecting it on your people as chaos. And the calm allows leaders to hold tension without needing to fix it immediately. Acknowledge the tension. We don't want to put on rose-colored glasses here and pretend a crisis isn't happening, or that a deadline wasn't moved up and all of a sudden we have no time to do things that we expected 6 months to do. It's not about avoiding or putting on the rose-colored glasses and thinking everything is awesome. It's about being able to hold the tension without needing to fix it immediately. It's about bringing in the logic and the decision-making and the creativity without working to the point where you are just doing busy work and making things worse. And so here's how it can practically show up: is you don't rush decisions to just relieve discomfort. When you have resolve and calm, you don't backtrack because of pushback, because there will be pushback, whether it's the leaders above you or your people. There's going to be pushback because there's tension, and you don't over-explain when clarity has already been given. Because this is the way it is. We don't need extra words that aren't going to add value to the situation. We don't need more data. We need the clarity of what data to use. And you also don't escalate emotionally to prove authority. You don't need to get louder or become more anxious or move around faster simply because you're trying to show you have it all together. And this is where the conviction comes in that you want to lead with. This is where, when you have calm and resolve, your conviction can shine through. And that's when people trust you. That's when people see that if you're the same during the calm state and during your daily operations on a Tuesday as the same as you are when a crisis hits, and they know that you can trust it because your values, your direction, your decisions are all centered. They're all grounded. And resolve is what keeps the climate steady, even when the storm is really loud. And this is why when we take time to regulate ourselves, it allows us to sit down with complexity. It allows us to break things into pieces. It allows us to see things more clearly from different perspectives. And you can listen fully without reacting. You can get more information from your people and say, okay, here are the facts. What facts do you know, or where are limitations? You can talk it through. And then your decisions become grounded instead of emotional. The calm doesn't stop the crisis. It doesn't stop the storm from happening, but it does keep the ship steady. So the next thing, pace is part of the forecast. How fast you move teaches your team how urgent everything is. So if you're a constant state of urgency, if you are constantly going, they're going to feel that and feel like everything is urgent. And I know that I don't remember the name who created the 4 quadrants, but it's important and urgent, important, not urgent, important, and not urgent, not important. Like that idea. But if you're constantly working as everything is urgent and everything is important, you're going to create chronic stress for your team. And that's going to slow down all of the operations, because not everything is chaotic and not everything is urgent. And the same as not everything you do is important. So teaching your team how to decide between those is crucial, even in the time of chaos, even in the time of crisis. And so when you have slowness without clarity, then you get stagnation. So this pace is part of the forecast, how fast you move. So if you're moving really slow and taking time, but there's no clarity on why or what you're doing, it will cause them to stagnate. It causes you to stagnate. You just get into sloth mode, or you get into like indifference. But your intentional pace creates stability and trust. When things are important and urgent, by all means, let them know, but that doesn't mean that we need to be anxious about it. It doesn't mean that we need to go into chaos mode and just throw all the SOPs out the window. It's the reality is that if things are important and urgent, they really need our attention. They need our good attention, our focused attention. And if you're the saying, slow down to speed up, I love this, because when I first started, at first I'm like, why would you slow down to speed up? But sometimes during times of crisis, or when things are important and urgent, you need to take a step back, take a breath, look at different perspectives, allow the facts to catch up to the energy, and then go into action mode. Because if you slow down to get a bigger picture, and I keep thinking this, like the idea of we have our cell phones, right? And you can take a selfie, you can turn it to landscape and take a picture of what's going on. But if you want a panoramic view, you have to follow the rules. You turn it to landscape, and then you like slowly to the point where you have to follow the line across it, right? And you can't go up and down you just got to go steady. And that's how you need to be as a leader. You need to be in a panoramic view. And when things are crazy, stepping back to get a broader picture of what's going on will actually help in the long run. So that slowing down, it does seem counterintuitive, but once you get the information, you can find the right direction to go. Then you can get in action mode, and your team has the clarity to speed up in the right way instead of in a busy way. Does that make sense? Okay. Our nervous systems respond to speed as a threat. When leaders who rush unintentionally, when they're rushing around, and they signal danger. And when leaders regulate pace, they restore safety. And so this is why it's so important as a leader to really understand what our pace is telling our people. Because when we regulate the pace, when we intentionally move and we intentionally slow down and intentionally speed up, because it's not always about going slower. It's about knowing what needs what, when to do what, right? And so when we do that, it allows our team to understand things better as well. And they will reflect that in their energy. All right, we're almost done here. Idea number 6. Here we go. Presence over access. Your team doesn't need more of you. They need a steadier version of you. More is not always better. More information can, and especially if it's not information that you know is fact could breed rumors, or people they get information overload and then paralyzed, right? So they don't need more of you. They don't need more information. They need a steadier version of you. The availability without presence creates instability. If you're there, but you're not really there, they don't, and you feel it, right? But they don't know how to react to that. And they don't feel that you are in this moment. So this happens a lot with our kids too, right? We're at a game, we're watching them, but we're on our phone and we're answering emails. I'm guilty at this as well. But availability without presence create instability. Multitasking leaders unintentionally communicate mistrust, unintentionally communicate threat, or the unintentionally communicate, you're not worthy of my time. And I know that's not what your intention is. And this is one thing that I am working on for my relationships, my friendships, my kids, also my team, is when I am with someone, truly be with them. When you are leading the team, and there are times, you're right, we've got, new information's coming in. But the thing is, it's okay, let me get this information, and then I'm going to give you my full attention. Okay, I need to put this on pause, but communicate, because we don't want to unintentionally communicate a threat. Your presence anchors the room. Just like when they're presenting something and they know they have your full attention, and they can watch your body language, and they can see those verbal cues, they feel valued. They feel important. They feel like the work that they did matters. And the same in the time of a crisis. Your presence anchors the room. And if it doesn't, you need to figure out how to make it do it. So when leaders are distracted, team stays on the edge. When you are fully present in the moment, it signals that psychological safety. It signals that your hair's not on fire and 20 other things that they don't know what's going on. They can focus on in their lane at that moment. And safety unlocks clarity and accountability. Presence signals safety, and safety unlocks clarity and accountability. It doesn't matter what the crisis is. You're a leader. It's your responsibility to control the tone, to manage the energy, and to bring that stability to the team that they need. And I guarantee that the more you do of that, the more your bosses will know and will see that and will lean on you in times of trouble and challenges. And the same as your people know that. And they know that when challenges come, that not only can they depend on you, they can trust you and that you have their back, but they want to rise to that as well. So let me leave you with this. You don't have to be perfect to lead well. You don't have to eliminate pressure, conflict, or any of the hard decisions. But you do have to be aware of the climate you're creating. Because whether you realize it or not, your team is taking cues from you every single day. They're watching how you enter the room. They're listening to your tone before your words. They're feeling your urgency, your steadiness, your tension, your calm, your resolve. You don't control the storm, but you absolutely set the weather in your team. And when the weather is steady, people can think more clearly, they can take ownership, they can speak honestly, and they perform better under pressure. And that's how a resilient team is built. And if you're listening to this and thinking, that's exactly what I want my team to experience. I want this kind of leadership, and not just talking about it, but I want them to experience it and do it. Well, that's exactly why I offer the sample sessions for my leadership workshops, the Aligned Leader series. And these sessions are designed to help people understand what's really driving the behavior, communication, and performance. Learn how to work with your natural wiring instead of against it, and build systems that hold up even when things get busy and pressure rises. If you want to bring one of these sample sessions to your team and see how this work shows up in real time, head to TamiMarieCoaching.com/call or message me on LinkedIn. That will be the fastest way. If you want to get on LinkedIn, let's pick a time in early 2026. And we can either do this virtually if you are not in the Tulsa area, or we can do it in person if you are in the Tulsa area. We can do it in lunch and learn style, but This is going to be the game changer from here on out. Understanding how to regulate your team's energy, how to motivate, how to truly lead through experience and not just talk about it. I had a conversation with a leader yesterday. She's a real estate agent, and we were talking about systems and how her business has grown and she has a team, but she doesn't feel like she's leading them well. So we talked about what's your goals, and when I started talking about motivations, and isn't her motivation just to sell more houses, and I was like, that's maybe the goal, but what's motivating them to do that? And when we started breaking that down, that's where she's, oh yes, this is what I need. And so the same as I'll walk through with her and her team, we'll talk through what's happening with your team right now and decide which session fits best. Because a resilient leader isn't just something you believe in. It's something your team feels. It's something that you do. And it always starts with the weather you set. All right, friend, I hope you have a wonderful time. If you are listening to this in December, I know we're getting closer and closer to Christmas, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. I hope that you are rested and rejuvenated, and choose joy until joy chooses you. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.